Today, why regional home buyers are getting crushed. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, where I've noticed posts covering finance and problem news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today, I want to discuss Labor's proposition for regional first home buyers, but also tell you about stress levels in the regions and why it is that many homeowners in the regions are significantly under more financial pressure than even in the main cities. So to start with, here is my normal stress modelling. The yellow line is the average across Australia, and you can see that since the year 2000, mortgage stress has been rising consistently. To 2008, it slid back. That was post the global financial crisis when rates were cut. Then it accelerated away again as lending standards were released. And as things tightened a little, the growth eased a little, such that in February 2020, 32.9% of households across the country were in mortgage stress. Today, post-COVID, that's risen to 41.6%. But in regional Australia, mortgage stress was tracking at a lower level, and it continued to do that right up until the start of COVID. In fact, when COVID started, in February 2020, regional stress was at 27.6%, compared with 32.9% across the whole of Australia. But since then, regional stress has accelerated away and is now tracking higher. The latest figure is at 42.8% of households. That's more than 500,000 households in financial stress. And remember, I defined stress here in cash flow terms, money in versus money out. Now, there are a couple of reasons why this is happening. The first is that, of course, there's been significant drift from the cities to the regions over the last couple of years because a lot of people have been looking to buy a house away from the main urban areas. That's put significant upward pressure on prices in the regions, particularly of houses. The second is, as a result of that, average mortgages have grown significantly, about 20% on average, in some cases even higher. And overall, the combination of bigger mortgages and higher house prices have seen prices in the regions increase by perhaps 26% over the last year or so, even more than 40% in some cases. And yet, households in the regions are continuing to see their costs of living rise faster than in the cities, cost of fuel, for example, being one of those, and even costs of food at the supermarkets. Tends to be more expensive out in the regional areas relative to the major cities. And yet incomes are not growing at all. In fact, regional incomes are growing much more slowly than those in the cities. So there is a perfect storm here of pressure on households, bigger mortgages, trying to compete with people who are cashed up from the cities, significant rises in the cost of living, and of course now the prospect also of higher mortgage interest rates ahead. This is not a very good recipe. Which takes us quite conveniently then to discuss the Labor proposal, which relates to first-time buyers in the regions. Now, as I've said on several occasions, these sorts of opportunities, to my mind, distort the market further. They don't really answer the underlying issues of housing affordability. But nevertheless, it's quite interesting to see what Labor is saying, why they're saying it. And the question I need to leave you with as you listen to this is, does it make any sense at all? So Labor has pitched a housing deposit scheme for regional first home buyers. And of course, that's ahead of the federal election, which is due pretty close now. The opposition leader Anthony Albanese has laid out a housing plan as an election promise for first home buyers in regional Australia. Under the proposed regional first home buyer support scheme, there will be 10,000 places a year for families in regional areas, and eligible buyers would be able to purchase a house with a deposit as low as 5% without needing to pay lenders' mortgage insurance. The government would provide a guarantee of up to 15% of the property purchased, and it would triple the number of places that regional residents received last year under the current First Home Loan Deposit Scheme, according to Labour. It will also be reserved for residents who have lived in their region for more than 12 months. Price caps apply to varying locations, with the maximum of $800,000 being in New South Wales, Central Coast, Illawarra and Newcastle regions. While house prices around the capital cities rose by around 21% in 2021, the regions saw a 26% surge. And in certain regional areas, the cost of buying a house grew by as much as 47.1%, which was seen in Warrnambool on the Central Coast in New South Wales. With house prices having skyrocketed and a sharp drop in affordability, regional first home buyers need and deserve their own dedicated scheme to support them to buy a home. A statement from opposition leader Anthony Albanese and Labour MP Jason Clare said the proposed property price caps for the regional first home buyer support scheme are as follows. In New South Wales, in the Illawarra, Central Coast and Newcastle, $800,000. In other areas of regional New South Wales, $600,000. In Victoria, for Geelong, $700,000, and other Victorian regional areas, $500,000. In Queensland, in the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, $600,000. In other regional centres in Queensland, $450,000. In Western Australia, $400,000. In Tasmania, $400,000. In South Australia, $350,000, and in the Northern Territory, $500,000. But Labour said it would review and update the price caps on a 6-monthly basis and work on the process of reallocating unused guarantees. Now, whilst at one level this might sound laudable, I have a feeling that this is more about politics than anything else, because of course Labour and the Liberal Nationals do not want to have any light between them in terms of housing policy. Clearly they want to be a small target, so Labour is very much wanting to just show that they are doing something. But as I've argued consistently over recent years, these sorts of incentive schemes, whilst they might drag forward a few people into the market, have the effect of distorting the market further and lifting prices even higher. There is nothing here to address the underlying issues which are causing the housing unaffordability crisis across Australia. I've discussed this several times in recent days, and I'll put some links to my other posts below. The fact of the matter is, this is just fiddling at the edges. It's political rather than dealing with the underlying structural issues that we know are there. But as I've argued several times, neither the Liberal Nationals nor the Labour Party want to tackle the structural issue of housing unaffordability that we have in Australia. Why? Because it would be too complex, and it would also be very disruptive in terms of people's wealth and also the financial stability of the banks. And yet, if we just let things go on and we throw a few more incentive schemes into the mix, all we're doing is just exacerbating a very bad situation. And just remember that on an international basis, we have some of the most indebted households around the world, that the prices of properties in Australia are at least 40% over their real long-term value on any basis you care to mention. And of course, the risk is now with rising interest rates, as I've discussed in another recent post, the chances are some households are going to start really struggling. And as I said at the start of this, we already know that there are more people in regional Australia in financial difficulty relative to those in the cities. So I have to give this a fail. To my mind, it's a political gesture on behalf of Labour ahead of the election, and there's nothing to do with addressing the underlying issues of housing affordability in Australia, which, to my mind, should be a critical election issue, but it seems to me that neither side of politics wants to go there. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.